المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. كيف حالكم؟ الحمد لله. My beloved brothers and sisters, respected ulama, imams, hujjaj, mothers and fathers, alhamdulillah, we praise Allah and salutations on our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. A few weeks ago, we started in our fiqh lessons the section, of course, still in Kitab al-Salah, but we started the section of Adhan and Iqamah. And this evening, I move on to part 2 of Adhan and Iqamah. And I think, from the outset, it's very important that everyone has clear knowledge of Adhan and Iqamah, because you're either going to be one who has to make it, in whichever situation, or you are a person who must respond to it. And so therefore, it's not only the knowledge of Adhan and Iqamah is not only meant for the Bilal or the Mu'adhin, it's meant for everyone. We should teach it also to our children from a very young age, especially the boys, inshallah. So in our previous session, there was one very important point that we shared, and I'll start off from that point where we mentioned that the recitation of the Adhan and Iqamah are both sunnah for the Fard Salah. Whether you are performing it on your own or as part of a Jama'ah, it is sunnah to recite it. And we touched on that in the previous session. Now, this evening, I'm going to look at very quickly, inshallah, some of the mustahabbat, some of those things which are recommended for Adhan and Iqamah. Okay? So the following are recommended. If you find yourself in a situation and you want to know, how do I make the Adhan and Iqamah appropriately? These things should be fulfilled. You should preferably be in a state of wudu. So it's not a requirement for the Adhan or Iqamah, but it is preferred for you to be in a state of wudu when you make the Adhan and Iqamah. And then it is preferred that you stand. So by extension, who gets to be the Mu'adhin, the preference is given to the person who is able to stand as well. So if you get two individuals and they are equally qualified, equally knowledgeable, experienced, but the one can stand and the other can't, then the person who stands should make the other. You should face the Qibla. You should turn the head, not the chest or the feet, when you recite Hayya ala Salah and Hayya ala al-Falah. Right? So the head only turns, not the chest nor the feet. So there is still the chest facing the Qibla. Another recommendation is that the Adhan, now note this, the Adhan should be recited calmly and slowly. The Mu'adhin must not rush with the Adhan. So when you are teaching Adhan, when you are making it, and also when you teach it to your children, especially the boys, we should not have a community where a male does not know how to make Adhan or Iqamah. Every father, and if there's no father around, the mother must teach every boy to make Adhan and Iqamah. Because there'll be a moment, whether they are performing Salah on their own, whether they are a teenager, and they need to be able to make it, they must be trained, inshallah. So you recite the Adhan and Iqamah slowly. And you pause after each phrase, and the pause that occurs after each phrase, the ulama, the fuqaha, right? It should preferably be equal to the duration of the phrase, with the exception of the takbirat made at the beginning. So at the beginning, we have Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So this is an exception to it. No pause is needed between that. So you can have Allahu Akbar, pause, Allahu Akbar, pause. Then we have each phrase thereafter. The phrase is recited and the Mu'adhin, the Bilal, must pause for people to recite that phrase in its entirety. Okay? Then they shouldn't, the Adhan should not be made in a very hasty manner. So when you are teaching again your boys or your grandsons, mashallah, many boys and grandsons in our community, and they make it for you at home, and you see they are speeding, slow them down so that they get used to the fiqh of this. Inshallah, the fathers who have sons, let them practice it. If you happen to be at home, let them practice it. The iqama is made without any excessive pausing again. So the iqama, the words must be clear, but you won't implement the pausing. Additional recommendations for the adhan and iqama is that we repeat each phrase after the muaddin, even if you are in a state of janaba. Even if you are in a state of impurity, you must repeat the phrase of the muaddin. You must even repeat it if a lady is menstruating. You repeat it. And if you are reciting Quran, you have to pause your recitation, the recitation of that Quran, and listen to the muaddin, and of course reply to it. Reply to the muaddin. So all actions stop and you reply. I must mention that this is linked to a live adhan that is delivered. If you are listening to an adhan that is live, not an adhan on an app or an adhan that has been recorded, that does not necessitate responding. So if the adhan goes off on your phone, then you don't have to respond. Now, of course, Masjid al-Taqwa, like many masajid, we broadcast and there are receivers in a few homes, quite a number of homes. Those listening right now via the receiver, you are listening to a live transmission from the masjid. So you have to respond to the muaddin. So if the receiver is in your home, or you are listening to for example, a stream, or you're watching a stream online, and the adhan is delivered live from that masjid, you have to respond to the adhan because it is a live adhan. If you watch a recording of an adhan, you don't need to respond to it. It is makruh to make the adhan in a state of minor impurity. It is more makruh to make the adhan in a state of major impurity, in which you require a ghusl. And it is even worse to make the iqamah in either of these states. So the person who makes adhan and iqamah must meet these requirements. It is preferred if there are two people, one has wudu and the other doesn't, the one who has wudu would be given preference to make the adhan. And my last slide on recommendations. After the words Hayya ala salah and Hayya ala al-falah, the person listening to that must respond. MashaAllah, this is well known in our community. So when the muaddin recites these, you respond with these words. It is expected from you to stop what you are doing. The only exception is if the adhan is quite delayed and you have already performed the salah. You have responded to, for example, someone coming for Asr maybe here and maybe going to another suburb, and the Asr is delayed in the Hanafi madhab. So the adhan is later. So if you had made it already, that calling, of course, is not upon you because you have fulfilled it already. And then when the muaddin says as-salatu khayrum min an-nawm in Fajr, then of course the person listening to that responds with sadaqta wa bararta. Right? And then in the iqama, very important, when the muaddin says qad qamati as-salah, then we respond with the dua, the recitation, aqamaha Allahu wa adamaha. This is recited when the muaddin recites these words in the iqamah. And then I just want to add one more recommendation, actually a question that came up. Is it a requirement for the same person to make adhan and iqamah. So it is not wajib, but it is highly recommended. Some of the ulama have written that it is actually ikmal, it is completion of the process in the etiquette and completion of the sunnah that the same Bilal, muaddin, makes adhan and iqama, and they equate it in the fiqh books to the khutbahs on a Jumu'ah, that it must be the same person who delivers both khutbahs on the minbar. So with adhan and iqama, it is recommended that the same person, the one who made the adhan, is the one who makes the iqama. That is, of course, fulfilling the teachings over there. And of course, the location of the muaddin should be, especially at the time of iqama, the muaddin must be as close to the imam as feasible. And so I have mentioned previously that the muaddin should stand closer to the imam, because the muaddin has a role of course, calling people. And technically, in the instance of sound cut, let's say there's no longer electricity or a mic, it is the Bilal's duty initially to extend the takbirat, because there's no longer a mic, and the muaddin must be able to see the imam. So if the muaddin is located further away, the muaddin can't fulfill that role that is expected of him in salah. And then lastly, and I'll close with this point inshallah, can a girl make adhan and iqamah? Only in front of women, but it must not be heard by men. So if you have a scenario, it's talking to my sisters, the mothers, if you have a little boy, he must be taught from a very young age to make adhan and iqamah. Because in the presence of a male, a lady should not make adhan, whether mahram or not. So if there's a boy, maybe 6 years old, 5 years old, that boy must make adhan and iqamah for his mom if he's at home. So from this we learn that you have to teach them from a very young age. But in a gathering of women, a lady can make adhan if it's confirmed no male will hear it. And it won't, of course, be broadcasted on a loud a speaker system. But as we have, there are some, in the Arab countries, there are some centers for women, but they employ males to lead the salah, and they employ, males for the adhan. Because in fiqh, those are classically roles fulfilled by men. And so similarly, even if you're at home, even if you're about to make salah, and a lady wants, and maybe a mother wants adhan in the house, she must call her son. Or a grandparent, you want adhan in the house, call the grandson. Make adhan so that everyone in the house can hear. That is in fulfillment of the laws of fiqh. So we close inshallah with the point, the adhan must be listened to and responded to, inshallah. Next week will be my final section on the adhan and iqamah. Any questions? All clear. Alhamdulillah. Are we ready for adhan and iqamah, inshallah? It's not only for a certain group of people. Another etiquette on the side is adhan. The person who makes adhan must be knowledgeable. They must be familiar with the laws of adhan and iqamah. So we all must learn it. And also, preference is given to a person who has a more melodious voice. And this, of course, was from the Prophet ﷺ. He knew the words for adhan and iqamah, but he chose someone whose voice was better equipped to make it, Bilal radiallahu anhu. So similarly, if you're in a group and everyone, is on a same level, then you choose the person. Oh, mashallah, I heard you chika very nicely. You make adhan in our group. You choose the person who's knowledgeable and also has the nicest voice, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Wa sallallahu wa sallam alayhi wa sallam. Shukran.